The Mayo Experience.
That Mayo Experience. That Mayo Experience. That Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, Week 14 DraftKings picks and preview. If you want to get into a draw for $20 DK dollars, what you need to do is smash the like button for this episode, leave your DraftKings handle in the comment section, tell me your single favorite play at either running back or receiver below $4,000 on the DraftKings Millionaire Maker main slate on Sunday. Lots of games this week, the most jam-packed slate we've had on a Sunday in quite some time. And if you want to get into a draw for $60 DK dollars, what you do is subscribe to the Pat Mayo Experience audio podcast, download the episodes, obviously, then leave a 5-star review, DraftKings handle, something you enjoy about this show, and boom, you're in the draw for $60 DK dollars. Winners will be announced live Monday, 1 p.m. Eastern time on the DraftKings YouTube channel. If you're looking for the cheat sheet for the show, it'll be out on Saturday. And if you want to touch up on the DraftKings picks, tune in live Sunday morning, 9:30 a.m. Eastern time, DraftKings YouTube channel, PME Facebook page, and on demand after the fact on the audio feeds up around 10:30 a.m. Eastern time, give or take like 5 minutes on either side, and boom. You'll have all the information you need. Joining me right now from EstablishTheRun.com and DK Live, host of the DFS Edge podcast, it's Adam Levitan. What's going on, man?
Hey, what's up, buddy? I don't know if you guys can see Jerry in the background. Doesn't look like you can. Oh, now you can. Nice job, Paul, switching to the one shot there so everybody gets a look at Jerry. Jerry's quite agitated today, so expect some barks.
Does that mean, like, whenever Jerry barks, we can fill out an entire roster then of guys?
It's possible.
There's no way that Jerry's team could be worse than the teams that I put in every week, so I might have to go with that.
Yeah, I mean, she's looking at you right now. She's thinking, I got a squad this week.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just not going to take any Jerry head-to-heads. I don't want to lose my money to Jerry. Holiday season is almost here. Cust went over his tips for holiday parties on the show. Do you have any holiday tips for the people out there? Because I've decided after, like, I gain like 10 to 15 pounds in the 2 weeks that I go home every single Christmas time. So I'm trying to like lose 5 to 10 pounds before I go so I can just get back to my natural weight. So that's like my tip if people like travel for the holidays, because it's not like I'm not going to eat all the delicious food around the holiday season. It's going to be like every single day, increase drinking, increase sodium, increase sugar. It's going to be a great time. Do you have any holiday tips for the peoples?
I guess my tip, well, I'm not much of a holiday partier. We're still on the grind here, Pat. I mean, we have 4 straight 16-game slates coming up. However, I guess my tip for the people would be just go straight for the meat, you know, and I've found for me, like, especially as I've gotten older, like if I just eat meat and like no bread, I feel amazing. I feel light. My feces, actually, I don't know if we can discuss this here, but whereas, you know, it could be all over the place, different forms, blah, blah, blah. If you cut out all that processed bread and sugar stuff, it's just like so regular and just like you barely even need, I shouldn't be talking about this, but you barely even need to wipe because it's just like so like pure right through. And like, it just shows you how healthy you are and how unhealthy all the processed sugars are and stuff like that. So that would be my one tip. Just pile on the meat, man. You can't go wrong. If you're gonna eat a lot, it's fine. Just make sure it's the protein.
So what you're saying is that if you run pure in the shitting game, you can run pure in the DraftKings game as well?
Yeah, I mean, look good, feel good, play good. You know what I mean? I used to play poker with a guy who wore a suit every time and everybody else was dressed like, you know, a homeless person. And this guy, one time I said to him, why do you dress like this? Are you coming from work or something like that? He says, no, man, look good, feel good, play good. And that kind of stuck with me. And I don't actually employ that, obviously, as you can see, but it's still stuck with me as something that maybe I should be doing.
I actually kind of get behind that. I mean, people always say, like, dress for the job that you don't have, but the job that you want, but just dress the part. And sometimes you just fulfill the part, even if you do not have the skills to do it.
Totally agree. And I wish I had better wardrobe. I'm obviously here at home with Jerry. You are at least there out in your studio, so at least you have to dress up somewhat.
I mean, I don't have to dress up. I'm wearing like a $3 Old Navy shirt right now. So shout out Old Navy. Also, as Levy pointed out, that EstablishTheRun.com is going to have full coverage all throughout the next few weeks. I'm going to go home and I'm going to go on vacation. And you're not going to have my losing picks. Actually, Jeff, Tim, and I will end up doing a show, but there's going to be no week 17 rankings from me. I'll have package shows, probably preview to golf season. But if you want to get 20% off at EstablishTheRun.com, use promo code Mayo20. And you will have all the information you need to at least try to be successful. It's better than having no information, of course. So, I am a subscriber, so maybe you should become a subscriber too. Mayo20 at EstablishTheRun.com. Let's talk about the DraftKings slate for Week 14. More of a first look than anything. When we look at the running backs, Christian McCaffrey is going to come in, as he does every single week, above $10,000, the most expensive guy. And then you have Dalvin Cook at $9,500, who's dealing with the shoulder problem. They say it's a pain tolerance thing. But do you think this is going to keep a lot of people off of Dalvin Cook? And should they be off Dalvin Cook?
Yeah, really interesting. One of the biggest injuries on the slate right now is the status of Dalvin Cook, because this is just an absolute home run spot at home against this Lions team. If Dalvin Cook was 100%, I would say Dalvin Cook would be right there with Christian McCaffrey in terms of the best value on the slate at the running back position. And of course, if Dalvin Cook is out, well, Alexander Mattison is just going to be the home run auto play for everybody, at least in cash, and the game theory bros can do what they want in tournaments on Alexander Mattison. But yeah, he has an SC joint sprain. We'll see. They say it's a pain tolerance issue, as you said. I kind of lean towards thinking they'll hold him out, but it is only Wednesday right now. So I honestly have no idea.
Even if he does go, I wouldn't expect a full workload, because it's a really interesting, like you said, game theory play here, because the ownership is going to be depreciated on Dalvin Cook. It seems like if he is active, he'd be worth a few swings if you were playing multiple lineups, just because we know what his upside is. The matchup is fantastic. And if it turns out he just has good pain tolerance and he gets even 80% of the normal Dalvin Cook workload, this is a smash spot with no one on him.
One of the things we forget is these guys get banged up and they get pain. These guys are getting injections before every game. They just shoot him up, put that needle right in his ass, and then he's fine for the next 3 hours. You know what I mean? So I would agree with you that there's going to be some risk in playing him if he's active, but there's also paths to him having a full workload. We'll see though. I do think they mix in Alexander Mattison maybe more than usual, even if Dalvin's active.
Well, Alexander Mattison comes in at $4,500, and I think even in tournaments, you can game theory yourself out of not using him if Dalvin Cook is inactive, which I think just would be foolish. At $4,500, just lock him into every lineup and figure out the rest of your lineup everywhere else. That's too much savings for a guy who is projected to get more than 20 touches if Cook sits against a shitty defense. So I would just lock him in probably to 100% of my lineups, maybe 80, something like that. But definitely cash games, and even in tournaments, I really wouldn't care. Do you think he's viable at all, though, even if Dalvin Cook is active?
Sure. And it's early, like I said, but the way the slate is shaping up, there's going to be a lack of players under 5K that interest us. And that'll be especially true if Greg Olsen ends up playing in this game. So yeah, I think we're going to have some thin plays across the board on DraftKings this week. And that's one thing about playing on DraftKings, you have to dig deeper than having an all-star team. I played Auden Tate last week. I played JJ Arcega-Whiteside. I've played Ben Watson in recent weeks. And, you just have to go deeper than an all-star team. So yes, obviously Alexander Mattison would only have a 10 to 12 touch projection at most, I think. But I on this particular slate, in this slate context, I think he would at least be worth thinking about. We'll see how it goes.
So the other guy, especially at running back, that now it was a joke, and then it wasn't a joke, and now Patrick Laird is $4,100. No Kalen Ballage. They did sign Zach Zenner, which actually kind of worries me a little bit as someone who could be the primary ball handler on the ground. But it's hard to run against the Jets anyway. If Laird sees 50 to 75% of the snaps, he could get there just through the receiving game alone. Do you think he'll play Patrick Laird?
Yeah, so I'm waiting to try to find out more about what the Dolphins are going to do, because they have Myles Gaskin, who I think they want to get a look at. They have DeLance Turner, who they signed off the Ravens practice squad a month ago. So they have 3 backs they can use. I think the back that plays best in the pass game is Patrick Laird, as we've seen. We've seen him rack up some garbage time catches. We saw him catch the 2-point conversion last week. So, Patrick Laird wasn't in play the week he was the big joke because Kalen Ballage was still there. and it wasn't that great of a matchup against the Jets. Everybody's game plan is to throw, and the Dolphins have no problem instituting throw game plans with Ryan Fitzpatrick. So yeah, it makes sense that Patrick Laird would handle a majority. Doesn't mean all, or doesn't mean 60 or 70%, but a majority, maybe 50%, 40 something percent of the running back work. And they also give some to Myles Gaskin, also give some to Lance Turner. We're still talking about the Dolphins here, and we're still talking about a road game against the Jets, who have some talented pieces on defense. So I'm not going overboard on Patrick Laird, but unlike in the previous week when he was kind of a joke, I think that he's legit in play this week.
I will probably end up not using any Patrick Laird, especially in tournaments. I mean, that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about tournaments, so I'll probably full fade him. I'm just more interested in the actual passing game of the Dolphins. And if I want to use Gesicki and I want to use Parker, potentially even Hearns at his cheap price, and Ryan Fitzpatrick, I get where Laird fits into that mix. But if I think he's going to be pretty popular this week. That just seems like an auto fade to me.
Well, I mean, the podcast that Davis and Peter, the Mans, did yesterday is sweeping the nation. I think they propelled themselves into the top 50 podcast on iTunes by having Patrick Laird on. So yeah, I agree with you. But so many people now are building their lineups for tournaments through MME and through projections. And so Patrick Laird, I think, is going to pop into a reasonable amount of them. I'm not sure I would necessarily raise Patrick Laird's ownership projection because of the chatter. But yeah, he's going to be owned just because he's in play and there's not a lot of value. So we'll see. I have the ownership projections at Established Run. If you use Mayo's code, you can see those. And I usually have a pretty good feel by Friday night where I think guys are going to end up.
Value guys on this slate. There's not a ton of them. Everyone seems to be pretty reasonably priced or even somewhat overpriced. And before we get to the very top end, if we're just looking at pure value, Devonta Freeman is a fantastic price, and he has a fantastic matchup, especially down Dontari Poe on the Panthers' defensive line. Do you think everyone's going to gravitate towards him? And do you think that's a mistake? Because he kind of sucks.
Yeah, so, I mean, Devonta Freeman's been in this role all year and hasn't had, I don't think he's had a single big game. So this role, and I mean, Brian Hill was in this role and just totally dusted. So I think this role is not overly fantasy friendly. That said, the Falcons are getting Austin Hooper back. They're getting Julio Jones back. Devonta Freeman, I thought, looked reasonably healthy on Thanksgiving last week. So yeah, I mean, Devonta Freeman is in play for sure. I think that expecting all of a sudden some ceiling game from Devonta Freeman after this position has not yielded a single ceiling game for 13 weeks is asking a lot. But you're right. I mean, one of the reasons I think Ron Rivera got fired, I mean, he's supposed to be some defensive guru, and they've just been getting absolutely gashed on the ground.
So if we think about the lineup construction as it pertains to running back, it does seem like you'd want to pay up for two, maybe try to find a cheaper flex running back to put in, or do you think it's a week to pay up at running back and then sort of evenly distribute the wealth across the other positions?
Yeah, well, you haven't mentioned Alvin Kamara, and I understand that he's playing the San Francisco 49ers. I think that's in play in the mid-range. And yeah, Christian McCaffrey to me is almost always a priority facing Atlanta. I think that would be no different. But, I there was 1 week recently where I didn't play Christian McCaffrey. I think it was the week he was playing the Saints. There just wasn't enough value for me to get to Christian McCaffrey. So yeah, I think, roster construction is always going to be fluid relative to the slate. And, we just had some surprise injury pop up. It's not for the main slate, for Monday night where Eli Manning gets ruled out. Maybe something like that will happen for the main slate, and we'll see, and things will open up.
Yeah, so I think I'll probably end up going with McCaffrey. I'll wait for a status update on Dalvin Cook, but I can see mixing him into it as well, even at low ownership, just to kind of double the field and maybe get lucky with him. Madison, if Cook is out, is obviously a lock in this spot. You mentioned Kamara. I mean, he's $7,000. You're not going to get a better price, and this could just be one of those games where he piles up 10 catches, and then he's most definitely going to be worth it. Is there anyone else from that top end that you can see building around? The one I would think I would go to would be Fournette with Minshew in. Mm-hmm. Just because, I mean, Minshew's mobility opens up running lanes for Fournette. There's no game script where he can really be out of it, and the Chargers defense reeks.
I think, you've seen why Leonard Fournette has been such a good play on DraftKings is because they're getting trucked 28-0, and Leonard Fournette's still in the game. And Leonard Fournette's still catching all these checkdowns. Now, I think his pass game usage has been inflated the last 2 weeks because they've been getting beat so bad. I do not think with Gardner Minshew in there, they will get beat so bad by any stretch. I think they have a reasonable chance to win the game against this version of Phillip Rivers. So yeah, I think Leonard Fournette is in play. I think at that same price range, Nick Chubb is in play against the Bengals. But as it sits right now, I would prefer Kamara, I think, to both of those, specifically on full PPR DraftKings.
So Chubb and Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt is now up to $6,600. Chubb is at $8,000. The Bengals defense has looked shockingly spry the past few weeks. Now, they haven't been playing the toughest quality of opponents. And I mean, the Browns aren't either, but they're a team that can really get it going on the ground. Do you think Kareem Hunt is overpriced? Is he viable here? Because we know that he's going to get some work in the passing game. If he can score a touchdown, then we're looking good. But now he's up in price that it's going to take a lot more to pay off that price tag.
Yeah, no, I'm out on that. I mean, come on. He's way too expensive for his role. And let's say you run into a scenario where there's only 25 running back touches to go around for the Browns in this game. Well, then you got a big problem with Kareem Hunt. So no, I'm out on that.
Anything with the Packers backfield, or is that too much of a split and then you're just banking on touchdowns that might not come?
Yeah, I was telling people that Aaron Jones just couldn't sustain what he was doing. I mean, Aaron Jones was scoring 4 touchdowns on like exactly half the work, and it's just unsustainable if people try to chase that in the long term. And it's catching up to him now where they like Jamal Williams. Jamal Williams is actually legit, like decent. And so, yeah, it's frustrating, but they're splitting it right down the middle. Of course, against the Redskins, I could see Aaron Jones putting like 4 touchdowns on 16 touches right down my throat. But, you got to live with that, I think.
The only other few that I'm looking at right now is the Chiefs' backfield. If Damian Williams is back, it throws a wrench into the entire situation. I think if he's back, they probably end up using him. But they signed Spencer Ware. Obviously, he's familiar with the offense. I don't know how much run that he gets, but it seems like everyone's really going to gravitate towards Darwin Thompson. And I guess it makes sense when you look at the running backs for the Chiefs. The past 2 games against the Patriots have been highly utilized. One, it was Damian Williams. The first time, it was Kareem Hunt. They both put up huge games through the receiving game. But I think that LaShawn McCoy is being overlooked here.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I was disappointed that they went out and signed Spencer Ware because I was thinking, hey, even if Damian's hurt, we have enough. They should think we have enough with LaShawn McCoy and Darwin Thompson to get by. They obviously disagree. So I think they have somewhat of a big lack of faith in Darwin Thompson. I would prefer LaShawn McCoy out of those guys. But yeah, I think Damian Williams has a legit chance to play. It's just, it seems like regardless, no matter what happens, they're going to have 3 running backs active, and it's going to be scary, especially going to New England.
Yeah, last one. And this guy's been actually pretty good over the past month. He's $5,800. He faces Cleveland, who doesn't have the best run defense in the world. And with Dalton back at quarterback, I mean, maybe they can move the ball a little bit. Mixon's been shockingly decent.
Yeah. There's other guys that I would probably prefer to mix in. I would prefer Melvin Gordon. I might prefer Josh Jacobs, and I know those guys are a little bit more. I haven't played Joe Mixon because Gio Bernard's been stealing a lot, and I understand Joe Mixon played like 80% of the snaps last week because they were really trying to win that game. I think under normal circumstances, he's back around 60. And also, they just haven't shown a willingness to throw to him enough. And I think a division game against Cleveland's probably not the best spot for Joe Mixon anyways, despite what's going on with the Browns and the Browns defense. So, yeah, I think I'm out on that.
Let's switch to receivers. Almost like the Dalvin Cook situation where we don't know if anyone's going to play him. Michael Thomas is the most expensive receiver on the board on the main slate. And San Francisco just hasn't been giving up fantasy points to receivers. So I'd imagine that very few people are going to spend all the way up and get to Michael Thomas. At least that's my perception of it. Maybe they will, and they just trust Michael Thomas every single week. But who do you think is the better contrarian play if you were to pay up? Would it be Cook? Would it be Michael Thomas? Or would it just be neither?
Oh, definitely Michael Thomas. I mean, haven't you heard defense doesn't matter, Pat? You haven't heard that?
I have heard that. I might be out on that. I don't know if that matters or if it doesn't matter. I would like to think that it does matter just a little bit.
No, I'm kidding. I agree it matters. I think that there are in competitive games for the Saints and the way that Michael Thomas runs routes, like he's so good on DraftKings because he runs a 5-yard hitch and he turns it into 8 yards and you get 1.8 points. And it's just like a run play for the Saints. His catch rate is so high. So yeah, I'm certainly not out on Michael Thomas. I think Devontae Adams, assuming the weather is good in Green Bay, is a better play against the Redskins, but there's no way I'm out on Michael Thomas. I mean, there's just no way.
Yeah, you could use, I mean, most definitely Devontae Adams is safer at $8,000. But if it's going to be a situation where Devontae Adams is somehow, let's say, I don't know, 25% owned, and Michael Thomas, for whatever reason, I mean, the reason would be the defense and the matchup, is like 10% owned. Wouldn't that lead you towards Michael Thomas?
Sure. Oh, for sure. Yeah. And it's hard to see Dwayne Haskins putting up any kind of fight in Lambeau. And I think that this game between the Saints and the 49ers, two really good defenses, but I could see points being scored here, perfect game environment, perfect weather situation in the dome, obviously. So yeah, I mean, I'd be surprised if I think Michael Thomas would be more owned than you think, probably.
Or maybe it's Tyreek Hill then is the one that gets overlooked here at the top end. He's $8,100. He gets the Patriots, but I'm not sure that even though the Patriots' pass defense is amazing, that the speed of Tyreek Hill, even outdoors, potentially in bad weather, I just think his speed overcomes what their defense can do. And maybe he's the one who ends up like 5% owned.
Yeah, I think he has a way worse matchup than Michael Thomas does. I mean, Stephon Gilmore has been, it's like Darrelle Revis level for those guys that remember Darrelle Revis. So yeah, I think Tyreek Hill will likely come in less owned than Michael Thomas. And yeah, he's had success against the Patriots recently. I mean, there's a big sample of recent Mahomes versus Patriots games. There's two of them last year. So yeah, I think Tyreek is interesting. I would prefer Adams or Michael Thomas from an equity standpoint, but yeah, I think Tyreek will be lesser owned for sure.
So if we just look at the $7,000 receivers, you have Thomas Hill, Adams, Diggs, Julio, who looks like he's going to return, DeAndre Hopkins, Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, Julian Edelman, and DJ Moore, all $7,000. If you pay up at running back, it's going to be hard to squeeze two of these guys or even one of these guys into a lineup, depending on how much you pay up at running back. Is it conceivable that you could start your lineup at $6,900 and end up using Devontae Parker against the Jets?
Yeah, I struggle a lot with these rising price tags. Like I was playing Devontae Parker at 4,100, and then I was like, God, can I really pay 5,600 for Devontae Parker? I was like, and now it's like, oh God, I mean, Devontae Parker is now 6,900. Can I really pay 6,900 for Devontae Parker? I think the price tag is getting away from us a little bit. Like I'd probably rather play Edelman. I'd probably rather play Odell or Jarvis Landry. I think Keenan Allen is in play in that 6K range. And like, if you can just find 300 more, you could get to Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. So yeah, I think it might be time for me to be out on Devontae Parker, as much as I hate to say it.
I think I'm actually going to take the plunge on Parker here. I think a lot of people will see the price tag inflating and be like, Devontae Parker, he's due for his 0 game. But he's just been so damn good. Double-digit targets in 4 straight. He's putting up 150-yard games. I mean, Fitzmagic is just going to air it out. And if there is a team to go against, the Jets defense is the pass defense that you want to be playing.
I mean, Jets are so good against the run, and they've struggled big time in the secondary. So, yeah, I agree with you. And like people think that Devontae Parker was terrible, was one of the biggest first-round wide receiver busts in memory, was an off-season warrior, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe he just needed, like, competent, aggressive quarterback play. And Ryan Fitzpatrick's done this before, man. I mean, Ryan Fitzpatrick's doing this a long time where he creates huge fantasy ceilings for his wide receivers. So it's certainly no fluke, I don't think.
So the other guys in the 6K range, I like what you're saying about Jarvis Landry. I think that he's actually a pretty nice price at $6,500 against the Bengals. I like him better than I like Odell, although squeaky wheel Odell wants out of Cleveland, so maybe this is the week he scores 8 touchdowns.
I mean, Jarvis Landry's outplayed Odell all year. I mean, what there's nothing more to say. I mean, he's been better. He's shown better chemistry with Baker. I think, Odell has a better chance at getting, one of those 30, 40-point games than Jarvis does. But, from a floor standpoint, I'd have to think about it. It's really close. But I think I'd maybe prefer Jarvis. I don't know. I'm going to have to think about that.
So with Blau at quarterback for the Lions, I actually kind of like Galladay. And I just, with the other names surrounding him, he seems like he's probably a bit too expensive for his reliability versus these other guys. So I think that he's a nice, like, little pivot play there. But instead of Landry, instead of Beckham, even DJ Chark or John Brown, like, shouldn't we just be playing Courtland Sutton every week? He's been awesome.
Yeah, God, if you were just going to bet on talent, you would play Courtland Sutton. And Courtland Sutton was in the buy low model last week. I didn't play him, just had such little faith in Drew Lock. And, I thought Drew Lock looked reasonable, but I think there's some tape on him now, and I have some concerns about Drew Lock going forward, this offensive line. So I actually think, I'm don't play much season long, but in one season long league where I'm still live, I actually just picked up Houston's defense, and I'm somewhat excited to play them at home against Drew Lock. So I don't want to say anything bad about Courtland Sutton. He's certainly a baller, but you probably found another one there that I'm out on. I feel like I'm out on all these guys that you're in on.
That's good. I mean, that's usually a good sign for the guests if they don't like the picks that I have. So, and it's great that, I mean, most people come on the show and be like, I like everybody, play everybody.
Right.
So, I mean,
no, I hate everybody. Yeah. I'm so picky. I hate everybody. Yeah.
That's actually perfect. I mean, I think that's what people actually want to hear. So James Washington, $6,000. Like, that has to be the most egregious price of the week, doesn't it?
When you go hunting with another man, that's what your price gets to.
I guess so. So the $5,000 level, you got Boyd, Sanders. I don't think AJ Green's going to be back. Debo is in there. Fuller. Zach Pascal is interesting if Hilton sits again against Tampa. At $5,500, I can't figure out if people are going to be on him or off of him, or whether he's a good play or not without. I mean, being the number one option, I guess you could say Jack Doyle's number one option in this offense. But is Indy going to do something stupid like bring Marlon Mack back and run him 20 times into the best defensive run-stopping front in football? Or are they just going to throw it to him 15 times and hope for the best?
Yeah, I don't think that Marlon Mack's going to play, but we'll see. I don't think that T.Y. Hilton's going to play, but we'll see. I mean, they're really thin and wide out. I think Zach Pascal will play every single snap regardless. And yeah, the Bucs have played better defense lately. And really the question is how the game goes, if this turns shootout, and because they don't want Jacoby Brissett to throw the ball more than 20 or 25 times. But if Jameis can get something going against Indy's defense, which I don't think it's the best matchup at all for Jameis. Indy plays a lot of zone, and they don't let stuff go vertical on them, or at least they try not to. So maybe this game is more low scoring than it seems. But, in game flows where Jacoby Brissett ends up throwing 30 to 35 times, I think Zach Pascal is an awesome play.
If Hilton sits again, Marcus Johnson played 93% of the snaps. He's $3,600. Would that be more intriguing to you as a lineup filler than someone like Zach Pascal?
Yeah, Marcus Johnson's on my list. I should note that Paris Campbell is questionable, and he might get back, and that would concern me a little bit on Marcus Johnson. But yeah, Marcus Johnson was on the practice squad. I'm not sure about his talent level, but the matchup is certainly right. And yeah, plays under 4K. Like, I basically have none that I like on the entire slate. Maybe like a couple tight ends, but yeah, I mean, it's really thin under 4K. So Marcus Johnson is one of the guys on my list.
Yeah, if Campbell goes, I would assume that he would retake over that spot as the wide receiver too and play around like 90% of the snaps. He's $3,200. But now the Frenchman, Paris Campbell, has to deal with Trump coming back, getting into a fight with Macron. Maybe he gets deported back to France. I don't know what happens. He's very questionable for this game.
I've been following the politics. I assume that's some Trump-Trudeau fight thing, right?
No, well, he got into it with Macron, the president of France, and then he got into it with Trudeau.
Okay, cool.
They were probably just speaking French, and then he got all triggered.
I can't keep up.
Yeah, so you got to watch out for Campbell. But I mean, he would end up being a pretty decent play, I would think. Like, if you're looking to save, maybe you probably don't need to spend $3,200 on a receiver. But if you did, it'd be a nice way to save some cash. Is there anyone else in this 5K range? Like, I know people are high on AJ Brown this week, but even someone like Cole Beasley, the more I think about this Baltimore defense and how Buffalo is going to have to attack, I can see them running the ball a ton. But these he's been running down the field more, but these high percentage passes to Cole Beasley over the middle for 9-10 yards, like, they should be available against Baltimore. And they do seem to scheme for him in the red zone.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't want to play Cole Beasley against Baltimore, really. I have so much respect for what Baltimore is doing on defense. There's one guy in the 5K range you didn't mention, and that's Jamison Crowder, who I think is Sam Darnold's favorite target and has the best matchup. And I actually saw a price decrease this week to Jamison Crowder. So I definitely think that's in play.
Yeah, especially Robbie Anderson has one good week, and all of a sudden he's back priced $5,100. I'm with you.
See, but Paul has Jamison Crowder on the graphic. You see, Paul's even on it.
Well, he does appear at the top of the list. That's usually goes hand in hand. I don't know what the buy low model says for air yards this week, but I have to assume that Terry McLaurin must be inching towards the very top of that.
I don't know. I don't have it in front of me. I don't think he's on there. But the guy who everybody's excited is on there this week, and I'll give a little preview since that is the cover boy is Mike Evans, and last two times that Mike Evans been in the buy low model, he's literally gone over I think 40 points both times. So his price is coming down. He's had 4 straight bad games. We understand the way Indy prefers to play defense doesn't mean that they'll be able to execute. So I think Mike Evans would be the poster boy this week for the air yards buy low model.
If you're playing in tournaments, obviously you need that high upside players. I'm not too concerned about floor if I'm playing the millionaire maker, even 3 max for that matter. I'm not concerned about min cashing. I'm trying to win here, Adam. And it's probably why I end up losing every week. But I start looking in this range of the 4K. I mean, like Will Fuller is probably the most extreme example of this, like the ultra boom or bust type guy. He's like 5,500. But in the 4K range, you have Hollywood Brown at $4,700, and then John Ross is likely to be back at 4,400. Like, did those guys intrigue you from an upside perspective if you're not concerned about taking a 0?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much John Ross is going to play. The Bengals said they're going to ease him back in, so that concerns me somewhat on him. Who's the other guy that you said?
Ross and Hollywood Brown.
Oh yeah. I mean, Hollywood Brown's been the same story all year. They wide out that Lamar prefers to throw to is Hollywood Brown. I just haven't been playing anybody against Buffalo. I mean, they are so good on defense, and especially against the pass game where they drop everybody into coverage. So no, I think in the 4K range, I'd probably prefer Mike Williams, but it's definitely thin.
Is there going to be a week where Mike Williams finally scores like 5 touchdowns in a game? Like all that regression is going to come at once, it feels like.
Yeah, and it should, I mean, they've been throwing jump balls to him like all season, they just happen to be at like the 20-yard line instead of in the end zone.
So James Washington gets this huge price increase to $6,000, but Deontay Johnson's only $4,300. And frankly, the Arizona pass defense isn't very good. They play an up-tempo game as well, which if they can actually score points against the Steelers defense, which is going to be tricky because the Steelers defense is quite good. So maybe defense does matter from that perspective. But if it speeds up the Steelers a little bit, I think Deontay Johnson's actually a pretty reasonable play at 4,300.
Yeah, agreed. And then, the story's been the same with the Cardinals defense, all season. They play fast and they're terrible on defense. Like it's not complicated at all. So yeah, my concern for the Steelers is the way they want to win with their 3rd string quarterback is play slow and run gadget plays and, do tap passes and do direct snaps to Jalen Samuels. And so it's not even like really a pro style offense. So you lose a bit of, I think, floor and ceiling on Deontay Johnson. But yeah, from a raw matchup and playing time perspective, assuming Juju is out, I think Deontay Johnson would be in play.
So the 4,000 and below type guys, you hit on Auden Tate. I too played Auden Tate last week, and it wasn't disastrous. He was fine, and he's still only he's still only $4,000. I think you could go back to him if you wanted to, if that's the cheapest you want to pay for someone. Was there anyone else down there like Demaryius Thomas against the Dolphins? We talked about Paris Campbell. It's pretty devoid of talent down here this week. What about someone like the hell is his name? Kelvin Harmon on the Skins. If Richardson sits and Trey Quinn sits, which it looks like that's going to happen, you have McLaurin, you have Steve Sims, then you'll have Harmon. Those are like the 3 guys that do anything.
Yeah, and Harmon's been coming on and playing fine. So yeah, I would that not a good matchup, I don't think, for him up in Green Bay, but he'd be in play. The only other guy under 4K I have here is Kenny Stills, who is with Will Fuller back is more of a part-time player, but he's operating out of the slot. Don't think he'll see Chris Harris, who is more likely to be on DeAndre Hopkins. So I think Kenny Stills is 3,700, I believe, and he would at least be in play, I think.
Quarterbacks for the week. Lamar is the most expensive, and I will most certainly have Lamar lineups because they scored 17 points last week, and I think Lamar scored 30 DraftKings points. I mean, if that's going to be your bad game, it's pretty good. And it's come to the point now where you don't even really need to stack Lamar. You can if you want, but if you just wanted to play Lamar and leave it be, I know it's a lot for a quarterback, but his floor is so safe, and the upside, I still feel like it's untapped at this point.
Obviously Lamar, get the 100-yard rushing bonus for a quarterback who also has, 4 passing touchdowns in his range of outcomes. He's been the highest ceiling for a quarterback all season. I would say, just from a raw matchup perspective, I think this Buffalo one is worse than the 49ers one. Like, I'd rather play Lamar against the 49ers than I would in Buffalo. So take that for what it's worth. But certainly, I'm not going to say bad things about Lamar in fantasy. He's one of the best fantasy players that we've ever seen.
So the values that I'm looking at right now, guys, that I'm considering putting in my player pool. Cousins at $6,700, especially if Cook is somewhat banged up. Maybe they just run with Madison, but I think at home, Kirk Cousins could take advantage of this defense, especially if Thielen is back in this game. I like, obviously, Ryan Fitzpatrick at $6,000 against the Jets. You could even play Darnold if you want. It's a nice spot for him in a rebound coming off a terrible week, or even Tannehill at $5,800. Like, those are the types of plays that I'm looking at, and I don't feel great about it.
Yeah, I actually don't have anybody under really like 6,500 that I'm excited about. I think this is one of the worst weeks for the quarterback position we've had all year. A lot of the guys that I normally like to play, are in difficult matchups or in the wrong style of matchups. So yeah, I think this is the worst week we've seen all year for quarterback. I mean, the ones that I actually felt okay about were Deshaun Watson and Aaron Rodgers, but there's certainly no bargains. I mean, I would say they're priced relatively appropriately.
I'm trying to think here. Andy Dalton against Cleveland?
Yeah, I would probably, if we're gonna really dumpster dive, I think Minshew or Rivers or Tannehill or David Blau or something like that would be more interesting to me than Dalton.
I objectively like Tannehill against Oakland. I think that's an all right spot. Oakland's run defense is actually kind of good. Even Derek Carr at 5,000 against Tennessee, I think makes some sense, but they just play so slow. I was actually talking with Thorman this morning, and just like we look back at the past 4 games in terms of overall pace and just like not even game neutral, just overall snaps per second. Oakland was 31st in the NFL, and they've been blown out in 2 of those games.
Right.
So that's not super encouraging for the amount of volume that you're going to get out of Derek Carr. Blau is kind of intriguing because Minnesota's pass defense sneaky sucks.
Oh, not sneaky sucks, like legit one of the worst in the league for pretty much the whole season. And I hope that people realize that by now. I mean, God, what are you telling your people out there, Mayo, if they don't know that Minnesota's pass defense sucks by now?
But no one wants to believe it, though. People think Minnesota, they think good defense. Xavier Rhodes, he's amazing. He's not. He's terrible. And if it's going to be a situation like, the Bears' pass defense is actually still pretty good, and he was able to maneuver. I mean, he got Kenny Golladay down the field, obviously, but if they just keep running 9 routes the entire time, Blau's just going to check it up. I don't care if he throws 4 picks, if he throws 3 TDs. I'm getting him at $5,100.
Yeah, I mean, God, Minnesota's pass defense is atrocious.
So it's not the worst play in the world, is what you're saying.
You're talking about David Blau, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't think it is.
Yeah, I think I'd rather play him over Derek Carr.
Yeah, I don't know if I can get behind that, but for tournaments, I think Blau will be way less owned than Carr. And I think given Carr's price and the structure of the slate, I actually think Carr might be somewhat popular.
Yeah, I know Tennessee's pass defense isn't great, but I don't know. There's something about that game that just feels slow and run heavy to me.
Well, it's almost a playoff game, right? Like, I think they're both 6-6, and basically whoever wins that game has a pretty good shot at the wild card, and whoever loses it is I think almost dusted. So yeah, I could play really like a playoff game.
Tight ends. The past few weeks, I've been playing a lot of double tight ends. Like, you talk about, like, can you build an all-star team, essentially? And you kind of can if you pay down at tight end in 2 separate spots, which isn't obviously optimal. But cheap tight ends have been coming through, like, at a pretty high rate, and especially the guys that people have pinpointed. Like last week, if you played Higbee, it worked. If you played Doyle, it worked. You just played those 2 guys together. You could have had whoever you wanted. And
Caden Smith.
Yeah,
Smith.
Caden Smith's another one. So do we have a situation this week where we have a double pay down option or even a single pay down option? Like, it did seem like you were digging Ian Thomas if Greg Olsen sits.
Oh yeah, I mean, God, if Greg Olsen sits and has a concussion right now and their season is pretty much over, Ian Thomas is 2,500 and is a talented guy and will play almost every snap, So on a slate like this, it's going to be, I think, kind of difficult to get away from Ian Thomas. And, he'd probably be a pretty good fade in tournaments because high-owned tight ends are almost always good fades in tournaments. And Ian Thomas has like a lot of 2 for 20s in his range. But from just an equity perspective, I would think that if Greg Olsen sits, Ian Thomas would be kind of the no-brainer. Jack Doyle's like 4,600. I mean, there's nobody even, close to 2,500.
Yeah, I mean, Jack Doyle at 46 is probably the play. I assume he's going to be the most popular cash play if Olsen ends up active, just because he's still cheap enough to make things work, and he's going to have such a high market share of that offense. I mean, Ryan Griffin and Mike Gesicki, I just really like that game in general. I want to make sure that it's not like a hailstorm in New York on Sunday, but like that game, like the over-under is 45, and that feels like a crush over.
Miami games have been the keys to the slate, man. I mean, the last, I think, 3 weeks, Miami games have broken all 3 slates, and it makes sense. I mean, they can play zero defense, and Ryan Fitzpatrick is one of the most fantasy-friendly quarterbacks. So, yeah, it makes sense. I haven't, thought about all the game environments yet, but I'm not opposed to Jets-Dolphins being a really good one.
Are you going to be the guy that plays Vance McDonald against Arizona? Because I am out on that.
I wish DraftKings would have made him cheaper. I mean, it would have been a better conversation, a funnier conversation if he was like 3,400 or 3,500, because Vance McDonald has 11 games this year with 6 DraftKings points or fewer. So to make him 4,300 is comical almost. Like, nobody in high stakes is going to play Vance McDonald. I'm sure, some people at lower stakes are going to get on the flow chart stuff and play him, but it's not, I don't think, the right play. Could he score 2 touchdowns because it's Arizona? Certainly.
Yeah, and I think that's the key. He would almost have to score 2 touchdowns to do anything in tournaments, because even if he scores 1, you're probably looking at stat lines like 3 for 17 and a touchdown. That's not really moving the needle for you all that much. At
4,300, I mean, that's bad.
Yeah, especially when you could go to Jack Doyle, who could be like 8 for 80. And then if he scores a touchdown, all of a sudden he has 3 times as many points.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, he's just too expensive. It's just funny. I find it funny.
He will be one of the more popular tight end plays this week, especially if people pay down, because it's going to be hard. Like we talked about at running back, unless everyone jams in Laird or someone else opens up like Madison, then maybe you can pay for one of the expensive guys. If you were to pay for an expensive tight end this week, who do you think it would be? Waller?
Well, one thing about Doyle is he's only 1,300 less than George Kittle. And, I understand matchup is difficult against the Saints. I still think Kittle would be a better raw play. Like if Kittle and Doyle were the same price, you would for sure play Kittle. So I like that. I think Waller is okay. I think Hunter Henry, against Jacksonville has bounce backs in his range. So those would be the guys that I would be okay with. And yeah, I do think, Kittle, I'm not trying to say defense doesn't matter, but George Kittle can transcend that for sure.
I think it's actually a really nice situation for Kittle, because whether how healthy Lattimore is going to be, we'll see. But it's not like they're going to move him inside to cover George Kittle. At least I don't expect that to happen. So if the Saints are committing all these resources to stuffing the run to make San Francisco throw and using their best corner on, I don't know, Debo or potentially Emmanuel Sanders, it could be a situation where they're like, you know what? George Kittle, you go have your game, and we're going to stop everyone else. And if that's the case, I mean, we know the big play potential of George Kittle. I can get behind that for sure.
I mean, George Kittle is such a beast, man. And, it's 1,300 is 1,300, but he obviously has a higher ceiling than Jack Doyle. So, it's just something to think about for tournaments.
I guess the other guy would be Austin Hooper, who does expect to return. He's more expensive.
Oh yeah, how much is he?
He's 6,000 is the problem. I don't think, but I really don't think that anyone's going to play him. More people will play Kelsey against the Pats than they will playing Hooper against Carolina.
I can't believe he's 6,000 because I didn't have him on my list because I wasn't sure who's going to play. That's funny, man. DraftKings has gotten very aggressive with their pricing, and 6,000 for a guy who is coming off the kind of injury Austin Hooper is coming off of is expensive.
Defenses to close this out. I mean, always a nice place to save some money is at defense. I can also burn you big time. But I really like the Chiefs against the Patriots, $2,200. It's all predicated on what you think happens in the game, obviously. But if the Chiefs can just jump out to an early lead, I mean, they have, I think, 35 sacks this season. New England just lost at center. They're still working Isaiah Wynn back in. Like the Chiefs have an aggressive defensive line that can get to the quarterback. And if you make Brady throw, as we saw, not always good things happen. Good things can happen for the opposing defense.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, man, I typically don't love defenses against New England just because they play so smart. And Brady does a good job typically of not taking sacks. But yeah, that's super cheap. I mean, and I prefer to play the Chiefs in defense in Arrowhead. I think it makes a huge difference for them there in terms of their pass rush. The cheap one that I think is best is probably the Colts against Jameis, the turnover machine that is Jameis. But I'll think about the Chiefs. I'm not dismissing it as a total donkey play, but I'm not seeing it, I don't think, right now.
Well, I got an even better donkey play for you. How about this? A team that was been brutal, and we've talked about them a little bit here, but over the past 4 weeks, over the past month, they've actually amped up the pressure on quarterbacks after almost going like 10 weeks with like no sacks. It's almost like what happened with Atlanta. When Atlanta came out of the bye and all of a sudden they were able to generate pressure all of a sudden out of nowhere. The Bengals have actually been doing that recently. Like the Browns have a terrible offensive line. I get that they're 8.5-point underdogs. I think that spread is too big. Baker, might have a broken hand for all we know, and he's not afraid to turn the ball over. That if this becomes a game where they can't just run 40 times, I don't hate the Bengals defense against the Browns.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, I've used the Bengals defense. I think I played them 2 weeks ago in cash. So, yeah, I agree with you that they've made some strides. And yeah, I would prefer to use defenses against Baker Mayfield and the Browns than Tom Brady in Foxborough.
Yeah, the only other, I mean, maybe. I just, for whatever reason, I like the Chiefs. And the Chiefs' special teams is always really good, and the Patriots have been bad on special teams this year, which is really surprising considering they're almost always top 10.
Say that one again?
The special teams for the Patriots has been lackluster this year, where the Chiefs has been really good. And again, it's that speed element to the Chiefs that I think that gives New England a lot of problems. And it doesn't matter if they have Hill returning punts or Hardman returning kickoffs, whatever it might be. Just their speed advantage is really huge on offense, and it might be even greater on defense.
Yeah. It sounds like you think the Chiefs are going to win.
I do think the Chiefs are going to win, which probably makes me like the biggest square in the world. But
no, I think while I was watching that game, and by the way, we should give a plug to the DraftKings Sportsbook, which I caught your infomercial for with Reed. It was awesome. But anyways, while the Patriots were like looking awful, they had the lineup. I mean, DraftKings had the lineup for next week, and I was able to get +4. And now it's down to +3. So, I think that I just took it for the number. I don't know who's going to win the game. I think the Chiefs are better, but I also thought the Chiefs were better in last year's AFC Championship game, and I lost a ton of money on that. So it kind of is what it is.
Just looking at the early numbers on that game, it does seem like people are betting the Chiefs. Like 70% of the early money is on the Chiefs, whether that be money line, whether that be +3. I would assume a lot of it is money line because you would get +140 on it instead of just taking the +3. I think I would rather take the +3, although I do think they're going to win. I would just like to have that little bit of leeway. And that always worries me when the Patriots, a publicly backed road underdog is never really a great thing. That historically does not turn out well. So, like I said, it's probably the square play of the week. The other defenses I think you can use. Baltimore, $2,900 on the road against Josh Allen. I think you're getting a discount on them for the price. The Broncos at Houston. I actually like the Broncos this week. I think $2,500 if Von Miller returns isn't outrageous, especially with their defense or their offensive line struggles. And the last one would be just the Niners at $2,700. I know it's not a great situation being at the Superdome, but this is one of the top 3 defenses in football that they can have a good game and they're super cheap.
Yeah, I'm fine with all those. I haven't thought a ton about defense. I think the Jets at 3,200, just anybody against Ryan Fitzpatrick, the way he plays at that price is okay. And then, if you can find the money, obviously Green Bay against Dwayne Haskins.
I don't like Green Bay this week.
Oh, okay. Go ahead. Let me hear it.
I think it's just, we've seen with Bill Callahan, it doesn't matter if they're winning or losing. They're just going to run the ball 50 times. And it's just hard to generate fantasy points against teams that run. I would rather take Pittsburgh, honestly. I think they're my favorite overall defense, regardless of price of the week. And they're only $3,500. If I can find my way up to the Steelers, that's what I'm going to do. I
like it. Yeah, no, I for sure dig the Steelers. I mean, Kyler Murray, I think, has done a reasonable job before last week of not turning the ball over. So yeah, I'm sorry. He's been turning the ball over a ton outside of last week. So, yeah, I think Pittsburgh's fine.
All right. That'll do it. The Pat Mayo Experience. Week 14 DraftKings picks and preview. What do you got coming on over Establish the Run? And what's the have you guys recorded the DFS Edge for the week yet?
We have not. We have not done the Edge. We have not done our Friday show where I'll talk to Evan and Wiggins about the slate. So, yeah, we got those 2 things coming up. But, yeah, man, I mean, everything at Establish the Run, we're doing it all the way through the Super Bowl. So a lot of time left. Use Mayo's code. Get in there. We'll see you there.
Yeah, the code is Mayo20 at establishtheRun.com if you want to get 20% off. You're going to have like hot XFL coverage during the offseason?
We have talked about it, and I don't want to make any promises, but if there is XFL on DraftKings, I would expect and hope that we're able to be in there just like we were for preseason, which by the way is the most fun thing in the world. But anyways, yeah, I hope that XFL is on DraftKings. I haven't heard if it's going to be on there or not.
I don't know if it's going to be either, but it could be tough. It's like that other league that just folded randomly. That I don't know. Right. I don't know if you'd want to invest the resources knowing that it could go kaput in 3 weeks.
The thing is, the XFL is backed by Vince McMahon, who has like God money. You know what I mean? So I feel like they're not going to fold.
I mean, he had God money the first time around and it didn't work.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
I feel like he has more God money now.
This is true. All right, Adam Levitan, you can follow him on Twitter at Adam Levitan. Of course, you already know that. Subscribe to the DFS Edge, and you can watch the videos up on the DraftKings YouTube page along with this video. And if you want to get into a draw for 20 DK dollars, give the episode a quick like. Actually, you know what? Not even a quick one. Just smash that like button. Leave your DraftKings handle in the comment section. Tell me your favorite wide receiver or running back below $4,000. Oh, there we go. Now we have to play one below, Levy. There's the Jerry Burke. Anyway, don't worry about it. If you want to get into a draw for 60 DK dollars, what you do is subscribe to the Pat Mayo Experience audio podcast. Download the episodes, leave a 5-star review, DraftKings handle, something you like about the show, and boom, you'll be in that draw for 60 DK bucks. Cheat sheet out on Saturday. And if you want to join the Listeners League, you can find the link in the description of this video or podcast. Highly recommend it. $15 to play, 3 max entry, no rake. Best tournament on DraftKings, all right? Good luck in Week 14. I'm Pat Mayo. I'll see you next time.
Pat Mayo Experience! Experience!